Rings of Power Season 1 recap. Tried to do a rewatch of the entire season. Couldn't make it through one episode. So I'm just going to do my best with the thoughts I've collected and give you guys my thoughts overall on the season. I'm going to try and be nice and start with the things that I liked about Season 1. First, the visuals. Some of them were pretty spectacular. The CGI stuff. Again, it's a lot of CGI overload, but I gotta admit some of the establishing shots were pretty cool, and it should be. They spent a lot of money. And some of the characters. Elrond and Durin, when they were on screen, they were pretty fun together. A couple of the new side characters. Disa, pretty decent side character. Was funny at times. Arondir, a new character, the elf in the Southlands. I really like that actor. I think he was maybe the one actor who really embodied what it was to be an elf in this universe. And I give a lot of credit to that actor. It seems like he got it. And Adar, the half-orc, I thought he was pretty interesting. That was a cool concept, having a half-orc. And yeah, those are the things generally that I liked. All right, now I'm going to go into the dislikes of the show. And number one, obviously, that this show had nothing to do with the lore established by Tolkien and written by Tolkien. And I'm not going to go point by point. I'm just going to say overall, nothing that happened in the show happened in the established and written lore. I can't think of one thing. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but literally not one thing. And that's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, number two, too many logical inconsistencies or perhaps lazy writing. When you're watching TV, sometimes you have to suspend your disbelief, but there was just too many of those. Like one or two an episode or a season are fine, but just too many. Just to name some of the big ones, Galadriel jumping off the boat and planning to swim across the sea just so happens to run into Halbrand / Sauron in the middle of the sea, and they just so happen to be picked up by Elendil, who's going to Numenor. Just total coincidence. And then another one, the volcano blowing up in everyone's face and everyone just surviving. I can go on, but just too many of these instances for me to really enjoy this. Fast travel, another one that just, I don't know, I just over and over again just wasn't working for me. Just to clarify my point on the fast travel, it takes one day to sail from Numenor, get up the river all the way to the Southlands, or Elrond hopping back and forth between Lindon and Khazad-dûm. The Galadriel and Halbrand riding, things like that. Just too many of those. And then, another thing, the volcano shooting ashes all the way to where the Harfoots were hanging out. I don't know. Just too many inconsistencies. Thing with the Harfoots. They stick together, but they leave your ass behind. All right, I'm done with the inconsistencies. My third dislike is that the costumes and the sets just seem cheap, like they were put on by a local theater production or something like that. To compare it to the Lord of the Rings trilogies, which you have to do sometimes, Hobbiton, or the Shire where the hobbits lived, I think they literally spent months creating that town, digging holes in the ground, building the set for months. They spent months digging it out for 30 minutes of screen time, and they made it so believable that was the Hobbit's home. Compare that to the Southlands, where apparently the whole kingdom of the South is. There's maybe 4 buildings in this village, and it just looked cheap. And also the costumes, the elf armor just looked like fake plastic stuff. Like Celebrimbor looks like he's dressed like Winifred Sanderson or the grandma from Halloween Town or something like that. Just looked really bad. The final thing I'll touch on is just the overall depiction of the second age of Middle-earth that they're trying to depict in the show. I just think they got it totally wrong. And I think that this is supposed to be the glorious time of heroes. It's supposed to be if you were, someone in the Middle Ages, then you go to Rome and look at the Colosseum, wow, our ancestors were so much better than us. Or the ancient Greeks, thinking on the heroes of the Iliad or the Odyssey, Achilles and Hector and those people. The people in the Rings of Power are supposed to be like that to the characters that we know from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Aragorn's ancestors, the elves, before that they fell from their glory. Khazad-dûm, maybe they get that right technically. But I just think the way they're showing it just doesn't seem to be at that level. Just to clarify that last point, the Lord of the Rings, the original trilogy, that's a society in decline. That's their heights are well behind them. Like when the Fellowship passes by the Argonath, those great statues, it's supposed to be like us if we were to look upon the Egyptian pyramids, like in awe of our ancestors. How could we ever live up to the greatness that our ancestors achieved? And I actually got a passage from the Return of the King, my old ass copy, kind of drive this home. This is when Theoden is talking to Merry right before he dies. He says, "Farewell, Master Hobbit. My body is broken. I go to my fathers, and even in their mighty company, I shall not now be ashamed." What a burden it was to live up to his ancestors. And think about in Fellowship when Aragorn is in Rivendell and he picks up the broken sword of Narsil when he's in Rivendell, and he places it down and he kind of like almost like prays to it because he has this legacy to live up to. These heroes, his ancestors that achieved such great things. How can he live up to them? But from what we're seeing in the Rings of Power, it's not going to be that hard. They're not that great. We have a couple, Isildur is just a whiny teenager, Elendil, kind of a crybaby, and the elves, they're just kind of dumb assholes. So I just think the depiction is just way off from what it should be. Yeah, so I think those main ideas pretty much encapsulate everything that I feel about season 1 of Rings of Power so far. Let me know what you guys think. Maybe you guys feel totally the opposite. I like when some of you guys respond and send me a message and let me know your thoughts on the show, whether you agree or disagree. I like having those discussions. Let me know, especially if you think maybe I might be mistaken on some of my takes on this show. I'm interested to hear that too. So, apparently the show won't be coming back at least till 2024, maybe even 2025. I'm personally hoping that they clean house, make some major changes, maybe take some fan critiques into consideration, and do a proper adaptation. See you guys.